Hello and welcome to an Unexpected Podcast. My name is Tim, and with me as always, we have Matt, Mick, Rainier, and Devin. On this week's episode, we're going to be going over a list by Alex Stiv, and then we decided it'd be kind of fun to go over the 5 wizards. I know the blue wizards aren't technically in the game, but there's 5 wizard profiles for the good. So we're going to be doing Saruman from Isengard, Saruman the Wise. We're going to be doing Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, and Radagast the Brown. So and shortly after the list reveal, we'll be going over the profiles and then arguing, making our case that which wizard is the best, and each of us have one. So it should be a little heated debate after that. But we're going to get into the list first. So I will pass that over to Nick.
All right, cool. So today we have a list from Alex Stiv. It's an 800-point model list. It contains Warband 1 is the Witch King with 3 Might, 15 Will, 3 Fate, Crown of Morgul, Fell Beast. Then we've got 7 Moron Orcs with shields, 7 Orc Warriors with spears, 7 Orc Warriors with banner, 2 Warg Riders with shield and throwing spears, 1 Warg Rider with shield. Second Warband is Shagrat with his shield of Kirit Ungol and heavy armor. Then 6 Moron Orcs with shields, 6 Moron Orcs with shields and spears. Then the third warband is Gurrit with 10 orcs, 5 with shields, 5 with spears, and 1 Warg Rider with shield. Then the final warband is Kardush, leading 5 orc truckers. So this comes up to 800 points, 50 models, and 10 mines. And Alex here is saying that this is not a specific theme with the list. He just wants to build a competitive 800-point pure model list. The main things I want are a healthy model count so that I can take more advantage of the army bonus, and B, including strong heroes and magic. I don't want to play the army like a horde. So I found this list quite interesting because, first of all, looking at it, I think it's a really great list and really, really strong, and I wouldn't blame anyone for taking something like that into a tournament and possibly even winning with it. But there is a couple of things which I always think about whenever I'm building model lists specifically. So first of those things is the Fell Beast on the Witch King. So basically, I would always argue for taking Fell Beasts on ring rates which are not your leaders. But the Witch King himself, being a hero of legend, he has to be your leader. And I generally find that he is quite vulnerable. If he goes on a Fell Beast, he's easier to hit with bowfire, and sometimes you may be making a mistake of throwing him behind enemy lines, and with just 1 wound point and 3 fate points, he might just randomly die. And the other thing is that you always sort of make the choice between the Crown of Morgul and Fell Beast. So the Crown is a no-brainer. I think it should always be taken. But then once you have a crown, you already have 4 attacks on charge. And so the Fell Beast only really gives you a bit more mobility, the monster bonus, and strength 6, which I would say aren't necessarily needed in this type of list. And so I was considering here this idea of swapping Shagrat for a Gothmog by dropping the Fell Beast. Just because Gothmog is another one of those things which you're able to gain your free might points from his special rule, and because you have so many orcs in this army, his other special rule really benefits your whole army by giving you rerolls in combat. So yeah, I just wondered what you guys thought about these changes.
Yeah, I like that you're focusing on the heroes. I want to take it to kind of parrot what you said. Like, I think it's a really strong list and can do really, really well at a tournament, a competitive one too. I want to focus more on the warriors. I think what I always do when I look at a tournament, you said you don't want to play a horde, but 50 models is a good amount of models. You're going to be outnumbering quite a few good armies, so I wouldn't want to do the whole half spear, half no spear. I'd want to try to optimize every point available. That said, also, I think your heroes are strong, but your army itself is going to lack. And one way to counter the fight 3 is to add a little fight 4 thrown in there, just to make it not so much hero centric and close to 40 something models that are just bodies with some punch. I would throw in I know a Moranan orc with shield and spear, the same points you can get a Black Numenorian. 9 points total discount. Fight 4. They cause terror, so you're gonna have a terror battle line even if you throw a couple of them in there, and they're higher courage, so they can charge things. You could even throw, if you're gonna get rid of a few Moranan spears for that, you can even throw in a few Uruk-hai, not Uruk-hai, but Barad-dûr, I believe they're Uruk-hai, or not Uruk-hai, just Uruks, and that'll add strength 4 and fight 4 kind of sprinkled into the mix, so you could go be a little more competitive against, say, a fiefdom's army or anything you come across in that sense. And then if you do come across like a fight 3 horde like Moria, you can just munch through them like butter. So yeah, those are that's the one thing that I want to say is just focus on your warriors a little bit. Don't do the 50-50 so much, and add some fight 4, because I think it's pretty easy to add that fight 4 with Black Numenorians and Uruks.
So I think this list is almost perfect. I would make none of those changes. When I read this list, I was like, wow, this is a really good list. I may actually play this list this afternoon. I've got an 800-point game. I may play this list if I play an evil list. The only thing I would do to it, and I'll explain why I wouldn't necessarily make the changes the others have suggested. The only thing I would do is I would maybe take couple, maybe like 4 of the Moranans or orcs with spears off of the Witch King and Shagrat's warbands, and I put them in Kardash's warband. And the only reason I would do that is in the unlikely event that you end up having a master battle situation and Guritz has not helped you sufficiently. You don't want Kardush kind of stranded on his own with just 5 orc trackers. I think you want a few extra bodies in there to make him a little harder to take down. That's, I think, the only change that I would make. I think Mick's alternative of taking the Witch King off of the Fell Beast and bringing Gothmog, I think that's a perfectly valid alternative. That gives you kind of more might control, but does sacrifice the kind of the additional threat of the flying monster. And I mean, you're right about the Witch King being somewhat vulnerable on a flying monster because he's your leader. But on the other hand, you get a flying monster. And I'm not sure I would take that out of this list. I mean, I've played the Witch King on Fellbeast a lot. I think he's great because of his ability to cast in, transfix somebody, getting that extra die roll to make sure that it goes through, then come in, have the might to strike up if need be, and then getting the extra attack from the crown. So you got 4 attacks on the charge in order to take somebody down. The Witch King on Fellbeast is the most powerful flying monster in the game, I think. And I'm not sure you want to take that
except
out.
for Smaug.
Well, all right, yeah. Except for Smaug.
Smaug
doesn't really fly. He kind of waddles. I actually am not sure that because of the magic that he brings with him, I'm not sure he's less powerful than Gullivar. I mean, yeah, he's less powerful in combat, but he does have the ability to strike, and he does have the magic. So he brings a lot. He brings a bunch of things to the table that Gullivar doesn't necessarily do. As far as Renier's alternate tactic of putting in Black Numenorians, that is also a valid tactic. I think if you do that, I found that having a few Black Numenorians doesn't help all that much because the guy goes and kills kind of the rest of your army that doesn't cause fear. If you're going to do it, you want to have a whole bunch of Black Numenorians, which you can do, but you sacrifice a bunch of strength. The other thing he's got Kardush, so he's got Fury that affects orcs, and every Black Numenorian you put in there is somebody who potentially has to take a terror check. Granted, they've got a higher courage, but that figure is not going to benefit from Fury. So I think this is a perfectly valid way to do it. The last thing I guess I would address is the split between shields and spears, because this is about a 50-50 split. And I understand the argument for having less shields and having more shields than you have spears, because you get a few extra points. This kind of has enough models that I'm not sure that's as relevant, because I think you're going to have a wide enough front line, especially when you kind of commit these warg riders to the flanks, that I think you can benefit from having a 1-to-1 shield spear mix, that you can present a two-man deep shield wall pretty much all across the line against all except the biggest of armies, like a goblin town or something like that. And I think a 1-to-1 mix, I think, is worth it here, especially since you've got your Morannons with both shield and spear, so that if need be, you can pitch them into the front line. If you wanted to, you can maybe take either a will point or a fate point off the Witch King if you wanted to accept a little risk, and maybe give some shields to some of your orc warriors with spears. But I'm not sure I would do that. I think I might just keep this the way it is. So anyway, I really like this list.
Go ahead, Dad.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I have to agree with a lot of pretty much what Matt said. I think I'm trying to find, like, if I were to construct a Mordor list, first off, just mirroring what others said, this is very close to what I would do if I wanted a very competitive list in one way. The one thing I would want to do in a list like this, because your orcs themselves don't really have any hitting power, they're really just a massive bodies trying to kill your opponent through attrition. I do agree that the Morannon orcs could be necessary, but you could, if you wanted, switch them to like a less powerful thing, like just spamming out orcs and such, if you had more like monster threats. But that's taking the list into a whole nother direction, where I was kind of thinking in my head, like, okay, how can I get either another monster in here or something else? Because realistically, like, outside of the Witch King, your major threat is Shagrat. Not to say Gertz doesn't hit hard. He kind of does, but he's not what you would consider like, oh my God, he's scary. There were some ideas I threw around, which, just to make sure this is correct, is Harad a historical ally with Mordor?
Yes.
Yeah. So an idea I just threw around in my head, and you can consider it, is swapping out Shagrat for Suladan. Same points cost, but now you're kind of turning the army a little bit more effective. He's also a hero legend, so you could swap the Witch King's legendary status, leader status to him if you wanted to, and throw the Witch King around like a grenade. Bring the Morannon orcs over to Kardush's warband, or whatever, and bring in some Haradrim. I mean, that's if you really want to go that route. You'll have some bowfire, I guess. But I mean, every time I start to tinker with the list in my head, I'm not sure that I'm making it better, but really just different. Even had an idea of like, okay, what if I tried to get the Spider Queen in there? But of course, you want to keep your army bonus. Shelob, whatnot. And so realistically, every time I keep flexing it, I'm like, it keeps coming back to, this list is fine. I mean, honestly, the list is good. So the one thing I guess I'll just comment on is, I agree pretty much with everything Matt said. The Black Numenorian thing, I think as long as you have a minimum of, let's say, 8 in your front line, they become a little bit hard to avoid. I do agree, and I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt him, but I was going to say to, Rainier's point about higher courage. I'm like, well, I'm not sure how much that's relevant. Yeah, you can kill Kardush, but I think by the time that actually happens, you're probably in a different position anyway, given that Kardush is usually extremely well protected, unless Legolas is just focus firing on him all game. But other than that, if you have 8 Black Numenorians, I can see that whole terrifying front line. But I actually like the Morannons, mostly because of the one thing that kind of irks me about this list is that you don't have enough hitting power other than the attrition of your army. So I kind of like the Morannons in there.
Now, what are your thoughts on Uruks? Because they add that, because I'm a little worried.
You lose the Fury bonus.
Yeah, then Fury's almost, it's not pointless, but
you lose Fury and they're not survivable.
They're only defense 5.
4, I think. Oh well, you can give them a shield.
Yeah.
I don't know, because like I do think this is like a top grade list that's really solid, but I keep seeing these like other horde lists at tournaments at 800 that are like 50 to 55 models, and each one of the models are fight 4. That's where I'm just a little concerned with, because of course you can shut down the heroes with the Witch King, and Shagrat can do his shenanigans, but I'm just worried about when it gets toe to toe against like a fight 4 horde.
Yeah,
What's a 50 model fight 4 army?
You could get a fiefdom's army around 50 models with good shooting and good decent pikes and stuff like that. You could.
Oh, that would hurt this list badly.
Yeah, you could do
Technically, you
Corsairs.
could do that with
Corsairs. Corsairs, you can get up. You can get up to
Corsairs
62.
Yeah.
Harad, you can get up to
They've got
50,
defense
50 or
3,
60.
Yeah.
So realistically, if he's
Yeah.
fighting a fight 4 army with the similar numbers, he's done. Like, he's gonna get hurt bad.
Yeah, and that's my only problem, because I keep seeing those at 800 events, but that's not downgrading this list at all. I still think this is
Yeah, I think
one of
anything
the
we say
best
going
lists we've
forward.
reviewed. Like I'd take it just as also. I don't know if of course we have to find like one weakness. I think the one weakness would be you have a lot of bodies that of course can strike, can give a lot of stuff, but if they're not winning the fights,
Honestly, every list you construct is going to have a weakness, right? Like, so I don't think,
Yeah.
for anyone listening to this, any list you make is we can identify the lists you don't want to fight. So, but I think that's just this one, the fight 4 horde. Not to say specifically like a fight 4 Army of Lake Town horde, but more specifically like Corsairs. And
Then, for that particular reason, would you consider swapping Shagrat for Gothmog?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was actually kind of experimenting with that in my mind. With Shag. I mean, you lose some numbers doing that unless you downgrade Morannons to regular orcs, which
I don't think you want to do.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, so you definitely just lose some numbers. Probably a Warg and maybe a Morannon or something.
Yeah, you could probably get rid of a Warg Rider and then a couple of Morannons to do it, because I think it's what, about a 30-point delta.
Yeah, 30.
I'm just not sure if you're adding enough benefit to make the check, because that Shagrat's delivering a secondary threat in hitting power. So what, Mick, are you stating Gothmog for?
I mean, Gothmog is still delivering the hitting power, especially when mounted.
But his can go away.
They're virtually the same in combat to a certain extent. Then you do get the longer, potentially a lot more might throughout the game. And his 2 special rules, one gives you hatred against man, and the other one gives your morals rerolls.
Is the hatred army wide or something?
No,
It's
it's
3
3
inches.
No,
inches.
it's 3 inches.
Oh, okay. That's his legion.
I
That's
don't.
right.
I think I'd keep Shagrat though, because like I think if you come up against like a dwarf D7 army, the only thing that can actually rip through that would be the Witch King and Shagrat.
So
Yeah, Shagrat never loses his ability.
no, and I like, so this is my main army that I play. The main army I build lists for is Mordor. I have gone through this kind of list hours of trying to perfect it, and I've never been able to I've made a list. I'm so happy with it, because Mordor is such a frustrating force to try to make a force, because a lot of times you either get one of two things. You either get really good heroes and your troops, you're like, they're okay, or you get really good troops, you're like, yeah, but I wish I had a little bit better here. Like, it's such a frustrating force to try to make. It can do everything, of course, where it's that jack of all trades, but you never really find at 800 points like that list where you're like, this is it, this is the list. But when it comes to, and this is the same thing with Shagrat and Gothmog, which I fought for years over going one or the other. And I tend to lead towards Shagrat over Gothmog, not because Gothmog isn't great, but the fact that he can lose his Warg is huge. The fact that he has 2 extra fate is huge. The fact that if he kills a hero, he gets a point of might back is huge. The fact that he's strength 5 is huge. I mean, Shagrat is a phenomenal model that is just a little bit overshined by Gothmog. And the Master of Battle is great, and the ability to reroll is awesome. But I just find that 30 points less, he basically does the same thing as Gothmog to an extent, where he has in terms of killing power, not what he does for the army or anything like that, but in terms of killing power, he never loses his mount essentially because the shield you can't take off. And also, Gothmog always scares me a little bit with that 1 fate. But I like, when I've built this list multiple times. and it's always the Witch King on Crown with Fell Beast. I get mixed point where you get the same number of attacks just at a lower strength, but then also with the mount having only 1 wound, that's a huge thing where if you can take the Witch King off his mount, yes, he'll still have 3 attacks, but at that point, you're more using him for casting, I think, a lot of the time, because you can't really risk him getting in bad situations on foot, so you can use him to fight troops, but then you've lost that ability. So I like the Fell Beast. And then I always have Gurrits. I don't know why you would never not have Gurrits.
Yeah, you always have Gurrits.
You always have
Kardoosh. You always have Gurrits, you always have Kardoosh.
He has like 2 auto includes in the list, which really kind of
when I have made this list, I actually do not include Kardoosh. And I know that sounds a little surprising because
blasphemy.
Well, I'll let Tim finish.
I'll
give the argument for not.
So I have made a list.
Fired.
I have made a list. First of all, another thing I think that's missing from this army is a drum. I think the drum is so huge in a Mordor list. The ability to get where you need to get that much quicker, and it's already takes your whole army, because everyone knows that Mordor's a rush army. Like that's their thing. They try to get there and fight. And so the ability to move that extra, I think a drum is an auto include for me personally. So if I were to try to rearrange this a little bit, I would end up dropping Kardoosh and the trackers. And I've made a list where it's the Witch King with the same stat line, Gurrits plus it was Shagrat, and I believe it was 44 Morannons with a drummer. And it becomes one of those things where you get a lot of defense 6 troops. You get the numbers up to, I think maybe it wasn't 40. I think it was like 40 or 42 Morannons. So you still get to like 44, 46-ish models where you have a drum, and you just move the army forward as a horde that is defense 6, so they can deal with arrows. And when they get into combat, they can hold a little bit longer, because a lot of this list has a lot of defense 5, defense 4. And then you have like basically 2 war bands of Morannons, which isn't bad by any means, but the outsides or wherever you put the orcs are going to get killed a lot easier. But the amount of points you can use from Kardoosh and the trackers to upgrade to Morannons, and add a drummer in there as well, I think it can move really well. It can fight with heroes, and I mean that's just
an Army of the Dead list and die.
Yeah, that is the problem when you go all orcs. Is you run into the Army of the Dead, or you run into a bunch of Black Luminorians, or you run into Aura of Dismay, and then you have a whole bunch of Morannon orcs that are just like sitting there staring at your opponent while they get shot.
I get the idea of the Army of the Dead, but if you come up against the Army of the Dead and are trying to win a fight with them, you're not going to anyway, because even if you can charge them, they're going to be wounding you on a 3? And you have to wound them on 6s, and you're the same fight value. So more than likely, they're going to beat through your line anyway.
Yeah,
the difference is they charge
you. But if you can get into combat, you're going to have like 2 guys for every one of theirs, possibly 3 guys for every one of theirs. It's just getting them into combat where they can actually matter, which is why Fury comes in. I mean, taking out Kardoosh from a Mordor list is, I think, a valid strategy if your list is not centered around orcs. If you're doing if you're doing a list that's centered around Black Numenorians, I don't think you need Kardoosh. If you're doing a list that has that has Suladan and a bunch of Harad added in, maybe you don't need Kardoosh. But if your list is just orcs, I think you need Kardoosh.
Because you're winning through attrition. Through orcs, so you can't win through attrition if they can't charge.
Yeah, but you're referring to one specific army.
Tim,
well, I'm referring to this list.
Like, in any situations where, let's say, your opponent's army is getting close to being broken, your Witch King wants to fight, your Shagrat wants to fight, your Gurrits wants to fight. They all want to be.
But Gurrits at the end,
fine.
He'll march.
Let's just imagine that Gurrits doesn't want to fight because he's not going to be as good. But even if you're keeping him back, and he is your only hero for Stand Fast, he's Courage 4. He's going to fail half the time. And in the meantime, if let's say your opponent wins a heroic move roll-off, they pin Witch King, they pin Shagrat, your Gurrits takes a Courage test, possibly fails, your whole army dies if you don't have Kardoosh. If you do have Kardoosh, you don't care about that. And that's that's how it works against every single army in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I've run a similar list to this, obviously without Kardush, and I think the courage bonus from the army bonus, because you're always going to have high numbers, that's always been helpful with the +1 courage and the re-rolling ones to wound, so you can kill a lot easier as well. I'm not saying I don't like Kardush, but I've had success without him and an all orc list with a drummer, is what I'm basically saying.
Just to throw out as a caveat,
yeah.
a lot of people might throw in, well, Barad-dûr doesn't have Kardush, and they're pretty competitive, and they are. But just for anyone who's thinking that, well, you have Sauron 1, but 2, the army doesn't break. So you really don't care if your orcs get slaughtered. Like, it's kind of like whatever. They're really a buffer, so Sauron can go around just wrecking the enemy army. So it functions so differently. So just anyone thinking that in the comment section. So.
Okay. Any last thoughts on Alex's list?
I think we all like it.
It's a very good list. Very good list.
I just have to add the thing about Felbeast. I love Felbeast. I would always take multiple of them if I could. Actually,
some of my best friends are Felbeasts.
Yeah.
But
I actually remember one time we were talking about the Harad list where we were talking about putting Felbeast under a betrayer. And this is one of those cases where if your leader goes on the Felbeast, I'm not a fan. But if your second hero goes on a Felbeast, I love it because you can just throw him out there and you don't really care if he dies. Mm-hmm. And then you can just do whatever.
That's why I thought of the whole Suladan to flip the Witch King. Yeah. It's an idea that gets so the Witch King can go out there and go crush things.
Exactly. Like if you were to swap to that one Warband of Harad, I think I would really love this list because then you also get the additional banner from Suladan. So you get to drop your Orc banner. So you get to even add more models, and Suladan's banner is 6 inches wide.
You just lose another hitting power. That's the only reason I didn't fully suggest it.
I think there's a problem though because he said in the comment too, like he wants to build a competitive pure 800 points.
Oh, he did say pure. Oh, so I'm like throwing out other ally options. Okay, well then the only option then is Shelob if you really want to get another hitting threat. But
I like Shelob.
I just don't know how to get her in. Like I'm looking at the list and I'm like,
Mick and I start salivating. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, like I've been thinking about Shelob for a long time, and the only way I can get her in there is if it painfully you'd have to drop Kardush or Shagrat. Like,
well, yeah,
you'd have to drop Shagrat, but like you don't want to do that because then you just created the same problem. So
I mean, especially given the Kardush. Kardush is a second offensive caster because he can flame burst to get people off of horses and have people expend their will before the Witch King comes in and transfixes them. And the fact that when you come to the end of the game, you can sacrifice Kardush to get that extra will for the Witch King. I think
we all like the list.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you make a list that's too good.
Yep.
Make more problems.
You get the little nitpicking from every person, but the general theme is still there. Kind of thing.
Consider putting more Morgul Stalkers in your list.
Yes.
That way we can.
Hashtag 2020 Morgul Stalkers.
2021, actually.
Or you know what? The next time you submit a list, don't give the crown of Morgul to the Witch King, so we have something like we can all agree on to talk about.
All right, thank you for your list, Alex. Let us know in the comment section below if you'll take this list to a tournament at all, or if you agreed with any of our decisions. I'm hoping you're going to say me personally, but you go with whoever you wish. We're going to move on to the main topic for today, which is the 5 wizards. So basically, we decided that we liked the idea of the 5 wizards. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in the episode, the blue wizards aren't in the game because nobody really knows anything about them. So we decided to go with Sarman from the Isengard list, Saruman the Wise. We went with Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, and Radagast. So basically what we're going to do real quick is we're going to go over the profiles for each, and then we're each going to make a claim for why we think our wizard is better than the others. So I'm going to move it over to Rainier first for his wizard, which is Radagast.
Oh, and I guess we should clarify that we were forced to pick our wizard. We were assigned this burden. So you must defend it with your life, Rainier.
Absolutely.
No, yes. Yeah, I did not choose the Radagast life. The Radagast life chose me.
And also, here we go. These are the top 5 wizards in the game. Just so everybody knows.
Rainier's going to tell you why Radagast is the best one. Not Gandalf.
Where's Sharky? Where's Sharky?
Oh my god!
Yeah, oh my gosh, where's
Hashtag
Sharky?
justice for Sharky.
Justice for Sharky.
Top 5.
Just do a final entry in the end for all of us defending Sharky.
Okay, so I got Radagast the Brown. He's a hero of legend. Basic 3/6/3 with 1 free point of will if he has his Staff of Power. He's fight 5, strength 4, D5, 1 attack, 3 wounds, courage of 7. So he's got the basic wizard profile there. Not combat-y like you're going to see when we talk about Gandalf the White. His heroic actions are channeling and heroic defense. He has a lot of actually versatility in his how you can optimize him. I'll go through what he can do after I just listed off. So he can switch his Staff of Power for a Great Eagle. This represents in the movie when he gives Gandalf the Grey his Staff of Power for when Gandalf goes and rallies the 3 peoples against the orcs. He can have a sleigh, or he can have a horse. So those are like the 3 big options: Eagle for 50, sleigh for 45, horse for 10. So you can make him a B-40 bomber in the U.S. with the Eagle. You can make him Santa Claus, or you can just give him a pony. Okay, you can add 5 points for Sebastian. Sebastian is that little animal he has in the movie. Sebastian, all he really does is add 1 attack to his characteristics, and if you win, he gives it a strength 1 hit with it.
For those following at home,
does,
Sebastian is a hedgehog.
Hedgehog. There you go.
Not just an animal, he is a hedgehog.
You say that like
shoot.
5 points for an extra attack is not a big deal. Like that's
It
big.
is.
You're like, it's just 5 points for an attack. Like,
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm saving it for when we go into the eagle part and the
you're
sleigh.
doing a
That's
very
where
bad job making your case.
I am. Oh my goodness.
It's still one attack, which cannot be altered by might, though. But it's still one attack.
All right,
That's
let's
true,
not bully
that's true.
Rainier, guys.
It's a free banner roll, basically. Let's put it that way. 5 points for a banner for him.
That's
so
stacked with another banner.
Holy smokes.
Okay.
So besides Sebastian the Hedgehog, and no, he is not blue, he is brown. He has Masters of Birds, so basically he can have Masters. He can have line of sight for wherever to cast his spells. He's also one with nature, so he gets the Stockenstein rule when he is off of his mounts. His magical powers are Panic Steed, range of a 12, hits on a 2, Terrifying Aura, 2+, which is pretty good. Immobilize, 12 inches, hits on a 3+. Nature's Wrath, Renew, 3+, 12 inches as well. Nature's Wrath, it's now 3 inches, but it's a 4+ there. And Aura of Dismay at 5+. So right off the bat, he's not that much of a combat hero. I'm gonna defend him after I go through his characteristics, but yeah, he's not that much of a combat hero. He's more for support of other heroes, or support for monsters, or even support for your troops. But yeah, the reason I actually do think he is one of the top, and I guess I'm gonna argue he's the best, guys, is his versatility. I mean, you can't mount Gandalf on an eagle and have him go bowling with orcs. You can't throw Saruman on a Christmas sleigh. And let me go over the sleigh's characteristics right now. The sleigh has 4 attacks and 4 wounds, and it counts as a mount. So with the charge and Sebastian, you're hitting something on six dice rolls, 12 with a knockdown, which is just insane in its own right. So I like, whenever I see Radagast or play Radagast, it usually depends on how I build my list. You can take him in many lists, but the first off is you can take him with the Eagles, which is really good. I like that because you have a whole bunch of basically flying tanks destroying stuff with Gwahir, and you can have Radagast doing the same thing whilst also healing all of these Eagles, including Gwahir. You can ally him in with Rivendell Knights, which I like a lot. And that's where you've probably seen this in the old edition, or not the old edition, before Nature's Wrath got nerfed. But I still think it's quite valuable. You could stack his Nature's Wrath with the likes of Elrond and Arwen, so that's pretty good. And then I've also seen him as a support wizard with other wizards, which I really like a lot. I know Devin's played this against me, and I hated it, but it's pretty strong, where you have Gandalf and a horde of Lake Town and Radagast kind of coming along with
match, but yeah.
You're hobbits in that. Well, basically a horde with two wizards, and the two wizards could basically shut down any mega hero or monster. Whilst also, if you, depending on how you optimize Radagast, like I said, you can throw him on an eagle. He can destroy, with Fight 7 now, he can destroy all types of heroes. He can hurl through battle lines. An eagle is an infantry model, which is a lot of people forget when playing the scenario game.
Oh, you mean when he dismounts?
When he dismounts,
not when he's mounted on him. He's a cavalry.
No. Wait,
okay.
Are you sure, guys?
Yeah, he gets a cavalry keyword. He becomes cavalry. He can't pick things up. He has to have another eagle pick up prizes. A few clarifications. Number one, I know this is in the middle of your speech, but you said he's not a combat wizard, and then demonstrated all these different ways he's a combat wizard. He's actually the most combat wizard in the game.
I'm trying to throw you guys off to confuse you guys.
Wait, what?
He's not a combat wizard unless he goes into combat.
Yeah.
On his own, he's not combat-y. He can't take out like Gandalf or something if you get him dismounted or something. But you're right. You're right. I think on a sleigh, he's the most troop killy wizard out there. You can
sleigh or eagle or a horse. He's got basically 2 attacks on the charge plus an extra attack that all doubles up. And I get it, it's a strength 1 attack, but the point is winning the fight.
You could do Nature's Wrath too on the charge and knock down other stuff or keep it aggressive. I also like his terror. He can cause him and basically his troops all around him to be terrifying. So that goes back to the bring him with a horde army like the hobbits or Lake Town, and all of a sudden you have a whole battle line that's terrifying with a guy that can knock down stuff, fly 12 inches to your black back lines and just go bowling. So yeah, initially when I was tasked with him, I was like, maybe not the best out of the wizards, because as you'll probably see, Saruman gets a lot of tricks. Gandalf has versatility, but honestly, Radagast just he ticks like you said, Devin. He is combat-y. You'll all agree he's a combat-y. He just ticks the boxes in everywhere. He's a great leader in my opinion because of his 3 fate, and he's hard to kill or wound. If he's not your leader, you can toss him in like a grenade. He can support your other wizards. And you're coming to see a lot of horde armies like Goblin Town or Corsairs or different evil hordes. And he can cause your army to be terrifying, which is really bad for those hordes. And also basically just kill a whole bunch of troops with his Fight 5, which is actually pretty good. So yeah, I like him. And he's one of, not all wizards gets heroic defense, but he has heroic defense, which is pretty good.
Also, quick clarification, because I did want to clarify this. Some people probably heard you say that Master of Birds makes it where when he casts his spells, he can do it anywhere. It's not just his spells. He can charge around walls. He can also see for you for your siege weapons. He can he sees the battlefield. He sees everything. So you can charge So just quick clarification on that.
Also, you could even put him with Iron Hill Ballista, just all types of stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Very good.
The other thing, I had never realized this until I just read the rules. In addition to that, eagle models within 12 inches of Radagast have resistant to magic special rule. I had no idea that was there.
Yeah, I was going to add that as well.
Now,
that is
here's the thing. When he's on an eagle, does that give Radagast on eagle resistant?
Yeah, he has resistant because he's an eagle. Yeah. He has the eagle.
Because your mounts can
I did not know that.
Too.
Yeah.
So even though he only has
this is teaching Matt something.
This is where
he's teaching me something. I'm just making it look like
I'm hearing Rainier sloppily defend Radagast. I'm I actually like Radagast. I'm man, I'll swap you, give you Gandalf, and I'll just defend Radagast here. But instead, I gotta
he's a pain in the neck because you come up against him and it's shoot, how am I gonna wound this guy? And he doesn't look like much, and he's gonna cause all this shenanigans. Or you come up against him, you're well, shoot. this wizard's on an eagle. Like, what's gonna go on? And back to the whole free resistance of magic. Him on an eagle, he doesn't have that free will point, so that frees up him to cast more spells on renew for his eagles, or more spells making stuff make well, you don't need to make it terrifying because everything's terrifying as well as is, but nature's wrath, like that frees him up for when he comes. We just reviewed the Witch King, for when he comes up against a Witch King, comes up against other casters. It's just amazing.
Although when he comes up against the Witch King, we need to have a discussion of the Panic Steed spell, which
Pretty strong.
yeah, and is he the only one with Panic Steed in the game?
He's the only, no, not the only one. Who is
Who
it?
else has it?
He is the only one.
Wait, is he
I think he is. Besides, I think
I
could have swore there was one other.
I don't think there is. I think
Yeah,
it's
he might
just
be
him.
the only one. Actually,
But
it goes back.
If you're a Witch King, or if you're a Ring Wraith on a Fell Beast and you see Radagast on the other side of the table,
Yeah.
boy, is that terrifying! Getting dumped off your Fell Beast on a 2+ from Radagast.
no, I think they upped it to 3. I think.
No,
Is
it's
it
2.
No, it's
2+.
So,
Oh, it's 2. Oh, wow. So, yeah, no, that's.
Yeah.
But that goes back to like how terrifying he is, in the sense that like you see Radagast and you don't think of all these different tools that he can throw out. I don't even think players utilize all of this also when they play him in most cases, but he's just a good toolbox of destruction.
I like how Rainier put it, where he's the most versatile. Like, you can use him in whatever way you wish to use him.
Which I'm going to argue against when it's my turn.
You've lost already, Devin. You already argued for me.
I had to first argue for you just to give you a chance against my wizard.
Oh,
I do want before we
trigger.
move on to another wizard, I think we should address the elephant in the room, which is the new change to Nature's Wrath for him. Are you guys a fan or not a fan of what happened to him?
This is all I'm gonna say, Tim. This is all I'm gonna say. Size does not matter. It's how you use it.
So, in my opinion, when I first saw Nature's Wrath on Radagast, I'm like, what have they done? Like, he will be the most spammed.
Game.
I was just like, why would you give him that? Like, it
On the freaking chariot too, it's
Oh
like
my
those
God.
ice skaters that go at the
I mean,
side, and then it's like, bam,
Thematically,
Nature's Wrath, bam.
based on the name and the way it works, it does fit.
You know what?
Radagast.
The sad fact is that Nature's Wrath was a totally fine spell. No one had an issue with it until they gave it to him. And then they nerfed the whole spell just to account for him having it. Yeah, like, I mean, is it useless now? No. I mean, it's still useful. It's just, it puts him in a very vulnerable position.
I even
Would
think
you
back
keep it on a
because I
5
have.
up though?
I'd take it on a 5 up if you have all that will.
It's a 4. It's a 4.
4+, 4 up,
Oh,
4 up.
sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
if it was
I think I'd still to argue him because I still think it's just one of his many tools. So like, even if you say like, okay, and like the argument against him is now he's gonna have to get into combat or get into combat's range to cast it. But I mean, he's on an eagle. Who cares?
It really becomes this like offensive tool for him. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I guess we should comment now that we've all kind of rallied around Rainier here. I mean, we should comment that the combat versions of Radagast each come with drawbacks, and I think those drawbacks are significant. If you put him on an eagle, he loses the staff. So he's got 6 points of will, and once those 6 points of will are gone, he's just a guy on an eagle. He, on the sleigh, he gets a tremendous number of attacks, but he gets a huge base size. And that base size has trouble fitting through gaps, and boy, can it get ganged up on. You need to be really careful about how you use that sleigh.
It's terrible, I think. Honestly, like, because of its size, it's so hard to actually put it anywhere. And then you only have
so.
5,
What are you guys a fan of? Like, how do you guys tend to
try.
use Radagast? Do you use him on an eagle? Do you use him on foot, on a horse? How do you guys use him?
I'd put him on a horse if he was accompanied by another wizard like Gandalf. Just because the double, you're gonna have them both on the back court of your army, just like casting and doing their shenanigans. So I would put him on a horse. If he's with the eagles, I mean, I've seen people put him on sleigh or eagle. I'd go with eagle because I want that powerhouse punch. I'd even even allied into the likes of like Rivendell Knights, I'd still go Eagle, to be honest, because it just gives that. It's a lot more terrifying. And one weakness of the Slay is it is a mount. So one bad hurl with that big, huge base size, like, okay, a Ring Wraith takes a knight, throws a knight, hits Radagast, like there goes 45 points. So
if he's on the Slay, you have to be really careful about where you commit it. I actually think the Slay is really good against foot troops that are fight 4 or below.
Sure.
yeah.
But you have to stay away from anybody who they could get a higher fight value than Radagast can, because Radagast has no heroic strike. So the highest he's ever going to be is 5. And you can get it. If you can get enough guys onto that Slay, even a heroic defense won't save him, because you could get, a dozen guys fighting that Slay if you kind of commit it in the middle of nowhere. So you have to, but on the other hand, if the heroes have been kind of sequestered and knocked off their horses and are someplace else, you can commit that Slay against an almost infinite number of fight 4 guys and below, just because you're going to have that 6 dice on the charge. That you're,
I think
you're probably going to get that 6 and just win that fight, knock everybody over.
Yeah, it's doable, and you even have like three might, so you could, heroic combat and kill like maybe like 8 or 9 guys in one
assuming
go.
they surround you and
Right. Yeah. Or you could even like come it sideways, like.
Well, even then, because of the arc of it, it's pretty rare you're not going to get any more than 2. Like you generally it's 2. Like
and I think you also want to save your might to make sure you win the fight.
Yeah.
Like you don't roll 6 dice and get a 5 highest and lose the fight.
You're also going to be combating heroic moves all the time, so you're really going to... Well, if you throw him out by himself. Obviously, if you have someone else with him...
But to defend my boy, he's got Woodland Realm at least, so that helps us slightly with the
Does he retain it on that? He does not, because he's not...
He does retain it on Slay.
Does he?
He does.
Oh, because of Master of Birds, or the Woodland thingy, Master of Woods, or whatever.
Yeah, but I would...
One with nature. One with nature.
I think...
That's only when he has an infantry keyword.
Infantry keyword, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, so he does not retain it. So even though we see him...
Here it goes. This is a mount with the following profile and the Woodland Creature Special rule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah, but the Woodland Creature Special rule, I think, only affects infantry.
No, the mount... It says that the Slay has it. It's in the Slay's... It's a special rule that attaches to the Slay.
Okay, so I guess as long as the Woodland Creature Special rule doesn't have the word infantry as a...
No, it says this mount. This is a mount with the following profile and the Woodland Creature Special rule. So this mount, meaning
Mick, if you could research,
this would override. I think this would override anything contrary in the rule book.
Yeah.
Because
it's even in the movie, like it's running through like little crevices.
No,
and stuff
I get the movie. But in the game,
you're bringing out the law on me.
I'm bringing out the law, man.
I'm bringing the big guns. But I want to mention this before. I think Radagast's what he comes with or what he can bring to adds to his destruction too, because the eagles that he can like lead is pretty destructive. Like just 100 points and you have like a flying like monster. What's Mick got here? Don't give me that bad news. Don't give me that bad news.
Is Slay considered to be a mount?
It is.
Yeah,
it's the same.
It says here Woodland Creature, an infantry model with this special rule may move through woods and forests that are classified as difficult terrain.
Sounds like we have an old case of
this
contradictory writing.
This modifies that. Because the rule says this is a mount with the following profile and the Woodland Creature Special.
Yes.
Oh, he can have Woodland Creature. He just can't benefit from it.
Yeah. The mount benefits from it.
Well, the mount benefits from having
if your interpretation is correct, this sentence has no meaning.
It has no meaning, is what I'm arguing.
You cannot interpret a rule to have no meaning.
It has no meaning unless you have the Fleetfoot special rule.
I'm pretty sure that if we think about it, there are rules in this game where we're like, why does he have that?
But that's
there are ones like that.
But I'd agree with Matt. Like it strictly says like this mount has Woodland Creature Special rule.
Do you agree with the law or?
No. Under the law, we will not interpret provisions of the rules to have no meaning. There's a reasonable interpretation that gives meaning.
There is no interpretation here. This is not the U.S. Constitution that you can interpret.
Guys, this literally sounds like the election right now. We should all agree what happened.
I think Matt and Rainier are correct, but technically what Devin and Mick are saying does, but I think Mick and Rainier...
technically, we're correct.
We're gonna get onto this.
Actually, technically, we're right.
Well, technically, you have that. What is that like? The little one cm, like tiny, like you can't move your model because it's too close.
Well, if you want technical rule interpretations, where do we get to Shadowfax? I'll just.
Oh gosh,
look,
guys.
I would love to keep talking about this. Genuinely, I think we got to move on. Unfortunately.
Okay, so we all agree he's the best. Let's go.
I think there is a second loophole within this loophole. In that, even though the sleigh is a mount, it does not seem to have a cavalry keyword.
Oh, so it's an infantry
and
model.
Therefore, it's an infantry mount, and therefore it would benefit from the special rule.
But wait a minute, but then it doesn't get the knockdown bonuses.
But then it doesn't get the charge bonus.
This is literally like an episode of like Inception. I'm so confused right now.
If anybody knows the rule, please leave it in the comment section below.
Yeah, I think when you are on a mount, you become cavalry is the way the rule reads.
Well,
all right. Well, we'll move on. We'll move on, but in the comment section, we'll say our final verdict.
Yeah. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna move it over to Matt, but real quick, one last thing. Radagast has heroic defense. Just thought I'd throw it in there. It is a huge thing to have on a wizard. But Matt, what was your wizard, and why are you defending?
All right. So I had Gandalf the White, we've talked about him before when we talked about Minas Tirith, but we're going to talk about him again. He is the Cadillac of wizards. He is the wizard that comes with all of the options, but you pay for them. So to start with his statistics, obviously he has move 6. He has fight 5 like every other wizard. He has strength 4 like every other wizard, but that's going to go up, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Unlike every other wizard, he is defense 6 rather than defense 5. So he is wounded on 6s by strength 3 attacks, not on 5s. And that's pretty significant. Unlike every other wizard, he has 2 attacks rather than 1 attack. So once you put him on a mount, and you almost certainly will, he will get 3 attacks on the charge. He has 3 wounds like every other wizard. He has courage 7 like every other wizard. He has 3 might, 6 will with an asterisk next to it because he has the Staff of Power, and he has 3 fate. His war gear are his Staff of Power, which of course gives him 3 will every turn. He has Glamdring. Glamdring is an elven made hand and a half sword, so he will win ties on 3 up. If he wants to, he can go 2-handed with the thing. And he increases Gandalf's strength by 1 when he makes strikes with it. So he is effectively a strength 5 wizard. He also has Narya, which is one of the 3 elven wings, which means he can re-roll each of his 3 fate die rolls. So he's very hard to kill. His heroic actions are heroic resolve, heroic channeling, and alone amongst the wizards, heroic strike. So he
Gandalf the Grey has it.
Yeah,
Gandalf the Grey, right.
Hey, don't diss my boy.
Alone against wizards who are not named Gandalf. He has heroic strike. So he can go in there, and he can, as we discussed with the Minas Tirith list, he can go in there and fight toe to toe with all of the mid tier heroes, the Hurons, the Faramirs of the world. He can give as good as he gets with them without using any of his magic. In addition, he has, for options, he has Shadowfax for 20 points. Shadowfax raises his move to move 12, so he goes as fast as a Felbeast. Shadowfax's strength is unimportant. However, Shadowfax's defense is 5, so he's the equivalent of an armored horse. He has 1 wound. He has courage 5, which isn't terribly important. He has 0 might, 2 will, and 1 fate. We'll talk about Shadowfax in a minute, but before I do that, I do want to talk about Gandalf's magic. He has a grand total of 9 spells. He has Blinding Light, which he casts on a 2, so he can defend against shooting. He has a 12-inch immobilize, which he casts on a 2. He has a terrifying aura to help protect himself, which he casts on a 2. He has a 12-inch command, which he casts on a 3. He has a 12-inch fortify spirit, which he casts on a 3 to defend other heroes in his list. He has a strength and will at 12 inches, which he casts on a 3 if he doesn't have anything else to do, wants to kind of bolster somebody around him. He cannot cast this on himself. However, interesting question, can he cast it on Shadowfax?
No, because
We'll
then
talk
he'll
about
be
that
casting on himself.
Well,
I know,
we'll
he's the
talk
model.
about that in a moment. And then we have Banishment, which he casts on a 4, so he can make ring wraiths go away. That's 12-inch Banishment. It's a 12-inch Sorceress Blast that he can cast on a 4, so he can blow people away. And again, alone against the wizard, amongst the wizards, he has Your Staff is Broken with a 12-inch range, casting on a 4+. So in a wizard duel, he can start breaking other wizard staffs, which nobody else can do. So let's go back and let's talk about Shadowfax and the interesting 2 will, 1 fate, and the debate about whether Shadowfax is separate or part of the model. Because we've had this debate on the GBHL and various other places, and as far as I can tell, people seem to think that Shadowfax is part of the model for some purposes and not part of the model for other purposes. And I've never been able to understand how to kind of square.
What do you
He is
mean
not
by that?
part of the model for purposes of using will. If Shadowfax is part of the model, which by the way the rules say he is, I think it's on page 17 of the rule book. When you put somebody on a mount, it ceases to be Gandalf and Shadowfax. It is Gandalf on Shadowfax, and it's one model. If that is true, then according to the way the spellcasting rules work, Gandalf should be able to use those 2 will to cast spells with. Because what the magic rules say is that the model can use its will to cast a spell.
Well, I think it counts as one model for the purposes of targeting. So if he's targeting someone, on mount, then you're targeting the entire model. So I think that's where the difference is. So the reason he can't use those stats is because it specifically states what stats he can use, which is strength, attacks, or not attacks. Sorry, strength, fight. I forgot what the ones were, but courage maybe. Other than that, though, he only counts as a one model for the purposes of targeting the model.
Okay, so if that is true,
I think
he should be able to strengthen the will of Shadowfax.
Yeah, well, he strengthens will on the model, which is himself.
Model,
he's
yeah.
targeting
No,
himself.
if it is separate for purposes of targeting.
No.
no.
I said
No,
it's the same for purposes of
Oh,
targeting
it's same for
the
purposes
model.
of targeting. All right, so
Yeah.
that distinction does not exist anywhere in the rules.
Well,
Now that I want to look up, but I'm pretty sure.
Hold
Yeah,
on. I have the rule book.
Nick, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go look at the rule book. I'm going to look up my copy too.
So actually,
wait.
We
there is a
end this
distinction
debate.
in that if you were to look at Azog, you are specifically told that Azogs or the White Work Store can be shared for the same profile.
Which isn't necessary if that was always the case.
Yeah. Whilst in Gandalf and Shadowfax's profile, it does not say so. Therefore, Shadowfax has his own, Gandalf has his own. If you are targeting Gandalf on Shadowfax with a spell, then you can use together. But if Gandalf wants to cast something, then he can only use his own.
See, I would fall into mixed camp on that in that aspect too, because you could use mounts you could use it to defend, but I don't think.
I think it's targeting with all spells and shooting attacks. They count as a single model. Now, obviously, you do an X-ray in the way thing later, but otherwise, it's always there's a model. However, this has very little to do with why Gandalf the White is the best,
It's
which
the
is
worst wizard.
not true. He's the
I have
worst.
a question, Matt. Like, how much is
Yeah.
this Ferrari? How much does it cost?
Yeah, I mean,
This
that was
Ferrari
one thing.
costs 240 points.
Ugh.
So ooh.
So the cost of an Azog, you can get, an old man.
Rainier, remind me, is it
So
Wizard
40
90
points
less?
more. You were talking about his combat stats. You were saying, oh, he's got what is it? Fight 5, 2 attacks for 40 points less. I could have strength 7. What is it? Strength
No,
6
not
is an
40,
eagle.
60 for you. Oh yeah, it's 40.
Oh,
points
if I bring
less. Yeah,
the
you
eagle,
bring
I
all
could
the
get a strength 6 to your strength 5. I could get a fight 7.
I mean, if you did that, you you get a crappy wizard with no heroic strike or compel, but
I don't care. I'm gonna take that sucker and throw him into combat. Go find Gandalf and just go, brother, go, fly away.
Also, if you have the eagle, then your stuff is broken, is nullified. So like,
it's true.
That's not
you go Radagast. Your staff is broken, and Radagast goes. I have no.
I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to get back to all of this, but because I'm going to go to. I am still back on the is this a model or not? I'm going to go back to page 56. A cavalry model consists of a rider and its mount.
Yes.
Right.
We've always known that.
Okay. Yeah. So all right. So that's fine. So Gandalf the White on Shadowfax is a model. Do we agree? Okay.
Okay, I see where this is going. He's cornering us with technicalities, almost the same technicalities he resisted when we talked about Woodland Creature. But
now we go to magical powers.
What is it called? Selective bias.
All right. So then we go to who can use magical powers on page 104.
Oh,
Any
here we
model
go.
with magical powers listed in their profile can use magical powers.
Ah, yes.
Model.
Well, hold on, because like Gandalf has magical powers listed in their profile. Shadowfax does not.
Yeah, does Shadowfax go? So, I'm gonna cast
remember,
Sorcerer's Blast with his little hooves.
It is Gandalf on Shadowfax. Everything that is on this page is within that model. And all right, so I also go on page 104. A model with magical powers and will points available can attempt to cast one and only one spell during the movement phase. Let's see. So, and using magical powers also requires having will points to spend. Typically speaking, a model without any will points will not be able to use any magical powers. Note the universal use of the word model, which, as everybody agreed about a minute ago, is Gandalf on Shadowfax.
So Shadowfax can cast spells now.
No, Gandalf can cast spells.
I have this question too. Does this mean Merry and Pippin can throw the 18-inch strength 10 stone whilst on Treebeard?
If you can find an area where it says throwing stones can be done with a model. Although Merry and Pippin are passengers.
They're not. Yeah, they're passengers. They're not mounts. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay,
but
funny
in any case, I'm just gonna finish this off with saying there is an example in here that they talk about Shadowfax, and Shadowfax's will is used to resist a spell rather than to cast a spell. And I think that is the kind of become the universal interpretation. However, that is not what they wrote into the rules.
I think this is definitely a case of just like a really big book that they missed some things on.
It is not clear to me, by the way, given that interpretation, which is contrary to the rules, basically separating out Shadowfax and Gandalf for the purposes of casting spells. It is not clear to me that Gandalf cannot strengthen Shadowfax's will.
I think with the consistency. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say. So, which book came out first, the Hobbit one or the main?
We're never finishing all the wizards, by the way. Anyone
the
who's
rules came out first. Hold on. Then
okay. So Matt.
and then the Deadly Union rule in the Hobbit book came out after, and therefore that takes precedence and kills Gandalf.
Yeah, but the Deadly Union thing is just that's just a clarification.
Union, if it was
also Azog doesn't cast spells.
No,
it doesn't come up for that.
But things get used across the model.
but
ask your local tournament.
I do have a question for Matt. Though I have a question. So like we all know that Gandalf is overpowered, but he comes at a price. Gandalf the White.
Overpowered.
He's not overpowered.
Overpowered.
Not overpowered. No, he has all these tools.
Okay.
Like he's a toolbox with all these spells and combat. But you pay for him. What puts him over the top compared to the other wizards?
It's his. All right. So we kind of had this discussion when we were talking about Minas Tirith, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But it's his ability to do everything. I mean, you pay a tremendous amount of points for somebody who can. Whenever you show up on the table, he's not going to be useless. He's going to have a significant impact on the game, no matter what opponent you're going to fight. If you need him to counter another spellcaster, he can do that. If you need him just to kill troops, he can do that. If you need him to go in and do hero stuff, he can do that. If you need him to shut down an enemy hero, he can do that. If you need him to knock people off mounts by sorceress blasting folks into it or sorceress blasting people, he can do that. If you need him to protect your other heroes from other casters by fortifying your spirit, he can do that.
But can he lead practically any army in Middle-earth?
He can do that.
Also,
I think he only leads Minas Tirith. He's a little exclusionary.
Well, yeah, but he can go in and he can join a whole.
I mean,
I think
when we get to my part, I'll tell you a wizard who can lead almost any army in Middle-earth.
I would love to keep talking about Gandalf. We do have to move on, though, so I am going to move it over to Devin with Gandalf the Grey.
All right.
I just wanted to add one last thing. He just sounds really monotonous. He can just do all these things. It's just so boring.
Yeah, that's right. He's so good. He's boring.
It's just plain.
There's no challenge to
I have to say, if that's the major challenge to the figure, I think he's doing okay. He's so good, he's boring.
Just wins games by default.
All right.
All right,
Devin, Gandalf the Grey.
Let me tell you about a true powerhouse. Look, people, you can have all the tools and all that stuff, but for 60 points left, you can get effectively a similar wizard. And let's be honest, 2 attacks, defense 6. You're not charging your wizard into combat. You want him casting spells. So save your points and get a wizard who can do all the same stuff. And that's Gandalf the Grey. Now we're talking about
Devin's
Gandalf.
the ShamWow. I feel like Devin's the ShamWow guy right now.
Oh,
like
I told you.
Yeah.
You want this? You got to go with this.
You have to get the Gandalf the Grey. All right.
You're like
Look.
the car salesman. Why do you want a Ferrari when you can get a 1965 Toyota?
I'm not even trying to upsell you. I'm trying to save you money. All right. Here we go. So we got a lot of the similar stats you're going to see on these wizards. All right. 5, 4, 5. All right. 1 attack, 3 wounds, 7 courage. 3, 6, 3 for the Might Will Fate. And I have a staff of power. Also strength 5, which, you know, you can throw Radagast in there. Yeah, you can put him on an eagle and all that, upgrade the points. But it's real nice to know that I can keep my cheap effective wizard, still keep that strength 5 if I happen to need it. Elven Blade, all that. Narya, effective leader. I can be a hero of legend or a hero of valor. So if I want Gandalf to be my leader, I can pick and choose like multiple little lists, which I'm going to get into in just a minute. He's got Heroic Resolve, Channeling, and Strike. Now, yeah, I lose defense. That can be very annoying and a good boon for Radagast. But I think the loss of Strike is huge for Radagast. And I think having Strike for Gandalf means that if I want to, and I've done this in Hobbit lists, all right, if I want to, I can just throw Gandalf into a fight where I'm already surrounding someone and just Heroic Strike up if I already know I'm going to, especially when you immobilize, boom, done, you know? And so I can actually use Gandalf in a combat role when he's still heavily supported. And most of the armies he can join are horde armies, so it's always great. He has a lot of great spells in here. I'll just run through them, but Collapse Rocks at a 5-up, Compel and a 4-up, Terrifying Aura on a 2-up, and then Immobilize on a 3-up, Protection of the Valar on a 4-up. For those who don't know, Protection of the Valar, actually, I almost feel like I don't know how often to use it. You can't be targeted by any spells, right? Or special abilities?
Yeah, that's right.
That's the rule.
That's
okay.
right, yeah.
Sorcerer's Blast on a 5-up.
And for those who don't know, it's pronounced Valar, not
Valar. I apologize.
Just a little pedantry to add in.
Notorious for that. I actually used to get corrected all the time when I said Urukai, when it's like, no, it's Urukai. And I'm like, ah. So here's the thing. Yeah, Gandalf the White's great. You know, I can understand it. But like I said, save the 60 points. And then also the flexibility. This is where I think Gandalf shines. This guy is in the Survivors of Lake Town, the Shire, the White Council, the Fellowship, Thorin's Company. He's so everyone wants him. All right, everyone wants him. Historical allies with everyone. He has all the friends, believe me. All the friends. All right. So, I mean, as far as I think that's realistically the biggest benefit to Gandalf is the fact that he can be slotted into all these different lists, lead what you need. If you want to lead Lake Towners, Hobbits for more numbers, Lake Towners, there's more numbers, yes, but an enhancement on a lot of your troops. Yet doesn't really lead anything technically in the Fellowship of the White Council. So these are kind of like roles depending on what you're already allied into. Same with Thorin's Company, but that allows him to go into unique lists. Like he's now a historical ally with the Army of Lake Town and such. So you can just slot him in, still keeping your army bonus. With models like Gandalf the White and Radagast, you have a lot less options on that. And when you hear, Mick and Tim's feeble attempts to defend their wizards, you're still going to be missing all these alliances. And so...
I'll throw the first punch, guys. Can I throw the first punch? Can I throw the...
It's all these places where you wouldn't want to put Gandalf in the first place, but you have the option to.
It's like he can go anywhere, but he doesn't really make it that much better.
All right, go ahead, Rainier.
Okay.
Throw the punch.
Okay, here we go. If for our viewers, if you didn't realize, once he mentioned Gandalf the White, his voice cracked because it was fear, and he knew he was lying. No, so I do get you, Devin. Like, he is very versatile when it comes to lists, and here's where I think he has it against him in both me and Matt. He's not versatile in this role. He's a good wizard with Fight 5 who can strike, and that's about it. Any list you throw him in is like, that's what you're gonna get. Matt's Gandalf the White, the Ferrari, beautiful. So many roles in the battle game. He can rip through troops.
And if you have to ask how much he costs, you can't afford him.
Gandalf's that kid in high school who like wants to hang out with like the different cliques, and like they're like, yeah, I guess you can hang out, but we don't really want you here. Like,
yeah, Matt.
He just goes around to all these different people. And he's like, "Can I hang out with you?" They're like, "I guess."
Matt's the rich kids. I guess I'm the kids with the bird crap on their face.
Yeah, I remember that clique in high school.
Yeah, we're all just sitting at a table, bird crap on our face, and like just we're all brown and stuff, smoking pipe weed. No, but back to that. I do like what you're saying, Devin. But I'm just gonna say this: he's versatile on lists, and that's about it. Radagast can be versatile in the whole game. You can take him on an eagle, on a sleigh. Heck, he's even got his little tiny Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, hey, here I go, extra attack. Like, there you go. And even the Ferrari. I don't know why I would buy an old beat up truck when I could buy a brand new one.
It's why we've been seeing Radagast. How often do we see Radagast now that the Nature's Wrath got nerfed? Is he like even in the game anymore?
Hey.
He is. You never see him because he's behind terrain.
Trigger me.
That's why you never see him. But he can see you. I mean, I would say Gandalf the Grey would be the perfect wizard if he had defense 6, 2 attacks, the ability to ride a 12-inch armored horse with fate, and could cast your staff as broken and fortify spirit. Then I think he'd be the best.
Yeah. He's Devin. He's Mario. Everyone knows about him, but there's better options. I'll take Bowser or Mario.
I've got to defend Devin here, because even though he can go to every list, when he goes in the Lake Down list, he's just broken, because the list itself is so broken too. So
he's broken by proxy.
You just put him into a Lake Down list, and you can have this horde of models. And if you put Gandalf the White into a Minas Tirith list, not only does he cost all these additional models, the cheapest guy in that list is like almost double the price of the average guy in the other list. So,
but that's more down to the army than it is Gandalf. Like, that's because the army is so good.
Well, not entirely, because you can't really put Gandalf the White into that list.
By the way,
when you put Gandalf the White into that list, Bard is the greatest hero that's ever existed.
Oh, hey guys.
Matt's gone.
Uh-oh.
Right,
we lost Matt. No.
Oh, I think he just decided to quit because we're attacking Gandalf the White.
All right, so we all universally agree while Matt's gone.
No, this how we summon him. We got to say Signal Tower 3 times in a row.
Look in the mirror and say Signal Tower 3 times.
Signal Tower.
He's gonna watch the podcast and be like.
We should keep this in.
Well, let's just keep going, I guess, and agree that Gandalf the White's clearly not the best. Does anyone here
He dropped out of the race right there.
Yeah, he just dropped out.
Gandalf the White just has to leave. because
he's like, pressure. I'm not good enough. I'm the first one to cut.
Nah, he's gonna like come back on the screen with like a legion of like Eomir and just like Riders of Rohan and just like, whoa, what's going on here?
I think in all seriousness though, but with Gandalf the Grey, I mean, he can pretty much. The Blinding Light is a huge thing for almost any army that you throw him into. He can Sorcerer's Blast, he can immobilize, he can compel, he has Terrifying Aura. I mean, he can pretty much do everything, and he could be a solid general as well with the ability to reroll the fate.
I get that too, and like the one thing that you were alluding to, Devin, is like he can lead troops. Like you can toss 12 warriors, 12 hobbits into his warband. You can toss 12.
15.
Holy oh, simmer down now.
Yeah.
I'm helping you. I'm not feeding you. You calm down.
Matt, we've decided that you
No,
have
but
officially
hobbits are
dropped
Lake
out of the
Town.
race because of that.
Okay. Yeah, I managed to move a book and turn my computer into sleep mode. So sorry about that.
Yeah, it's
So,
okay.
I guess
what I
We
missed.
said signal tower 3 times in a row while looking into the mirror to summon you.
I think for purposes of time, we'll probably just move to the next one.
Also,
But we agree, Devin.
have
He's
to
a
add-
really solid take. Actually, really solid. I think he's really good.
Just have to
Gandalf's
add
the
one
great.
final thing about Gandalf is that despite all those amazing things, he still has to go to Saruman to ask a few things because
Yes.
he's not
Oh.
really.
That's
he's
right.
Not really
he's
that
he's like,
Segue.
Master, can I please do this?
Yeah.
So we will move that over to the lesser Saruman. Mick, your Saruman, please.
Oh! You mean the one from Isengard?
No.
Okay.
Was Saruman's
so,
true form always his evil form? Is that he always was evil?
the wisest of all wizards, the greatest of all things.
He doesn't sound that wise right now.
Right. So
So what do we got for this Saruman?
Saruman the White, or the Good Saruman, he is also 170, has the same stats as Gandalf. He does not have Heroic Strike, but he has Heroic Defense, therefore he will survive much more. Also, as we all know, Gandalf has to go and listen to him, because everybody has to listen to Saruman, thanks to his voice of Curanir. His standfast is 12 inches and affects heroes, which is one of those huge things which basically can give you an entire control of the battlefield through standfast. His other thing is consuming rifle blade, which means he's not very good with Gandalf necessarily. He will not move as part of a heroic action with Gandalf, and he will not accept Gandalf's strength and will. But in most cases, you won't be playing double wizards anyway, except in like very specific lists. Then he also gets to reroll 1 dice when making spells, when casting spells, and to resist, which is actually here incredible because all of his spells are cast on no more than a 4. So Aura of Command is cast on a 2+. Immobilize with 18-inch range is cast on a 2+. Terrifying Aura is on 2+. Command is on a 3+ with 18-inch range. And Sorcerer's Blast is on a 4+ with 12. So you virtually never have to use
What does he need
a
to cast
single
Blinding
will
Light?
point.
What does he need to cast Blinding Light?
So you virtually never have to use a single will point to cast any of your spells. His Aura of Command is a great spell because as soon as basically on turn 1 of the game, you roll a dice. If it's a 1, you roll it again, and then for the rest of the game, none of your models within 6 inches have to carry about carriage. So there's that. And the other thing is 18-inch Immobilize plus being mounted gives you an entire control of the entire battlefield. On immobilizing, moving things around, just ensuring that nothing ever comes close to you when you don't want it to come close to you. So yeah, he's just so much better than everybody else in that you basically start a game and you have everything in control and you basically win.
Oof.
And Devin is just trying to like chop in there somehow, but I'm gonna stop him there. So
Who's gonna throw the first punch?
in the old edition of the rules, I would I never left home without Saruman. For about 8 or 9 years, every good army I ever built had Saruman in it. These days, because the game has changed slightly, I don't always have him. But had the game not changed, I would still have him. And every single time I'll use Saruman. Right then, moving on to Saruman, the evil guy. So moving to him.
Mick, I was just about to defend you, but not anymore.
No, I think there's some other interesting things that. Well, first, yeah, Tim, what did you have to also add to Saruman? You know,
I think the great thing about Saruman is you all have to cast spells and just hope your dice do well. If we screw up, we go, you know what? Let's re-roll it. You know, you want to cast a spell at us and we fail? Let's re-roll that. You know,
I think the beautiful thing about that is actually you need less dice
Yeah.
actually reliably
Yeah.
you can really cast usually well, you cast everything on like a 4-up or less, so like you really need like 1 dice for almost every spell you ever cast.
I think what
Well,
gets
that's the
Mick
thing.
too is his range. Like you can
Yeah.
do Sorcerer's Blast at like 6 inches further than anyone else is doing it.
No, not
So-
Sorcerer's
so-
Blast.
No,
Sorcerer's
that's
Blast
the
is
only one you
insane,
can't. Yeah.
Oh, that's only one.
Unmobilized in
But still,
command
you can
rating.
do shenanigans like at like really far distance, and cause a lot of mayhem. I know Tim Hines used to play this guy, so I've been, Tim Hines. That was a one spicy game. But I've played against Tim Hines using him, and it was just like, okay, deployment, go. And he's like, okay, yeah, this guy's gonna do this. I'm gonna make your guy do this. I'm gonna make that guy do that. And I'm like, wait, but what? He's on the other side of the board. No, don't. So yeah, that's quite terrifying in its own sense. To poke some holes though, what can you elaborate on what has downgraded in the new edition with him? Why people aren't taking him as much?
So one thing, obviously, is Sorcerer's Blast became weaker, and I personally
huge.
I personally never really saw Saruman as primarily a Sorcerer's Blaster. He was always the 18-inch immobilizer commander.
I'm going to clarify that later.
And then once combat started, he'd be Sorcerer's Blasting everything into oblivion anyway. So obviously Sorcerer's Blast nerf is quite big. He used to basically just have all of the options possible in that in early game you were able to immobilize, in late game you were able to blast, you were able to charge, and also he doesn't have a heroic strike. So that is a sad situation now where I used to just run Saruman into combat a lot, and now I'm kind of worried about that sometimes. But so is Rainier when he's not riding the eagle. So,
But hey, when am I not riding the eagle? Like that sucker's like,
well, when,
that's true.
whenever you're riding that sleigh inside the forest.
That's true, but I bring presents to kids, and like there's cheer all around, and like the whole tournament's gonna be happy. Like
I think actually a big point to miss is actually the RF command. I think that is incredibly useful spell. In fact,
incredibly good, yeah.
Sometimes I actually slot Sarman into lists just for that spell. Like, I mean, back in the day, I used to run double wizard lists. I was really happy with those. Used to do it with either Lake Town or Fountain Court Guard. There was actually variants where I think the Polish ran it with like Rohan. And yeah, the double Sorcerer's Blast was key there. Now, it's not really as much of an offensive spell so much as a utility spell. So I think that did see the downgrade in Saruman. All the points you mentioned about the 18-inch range and all that. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I haven't played Saruman. Not that the new edition has been out for very long, but I haven't played him. But I don't think he's actually like someone I wouldn't take. I think he is someone who really easily slots into most lists just because of his alliances from the White Council. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of a real niche thing, but it's really, if he didn't have RF Command, I probably wouldn't look too much at him. But I think RF Command is a really
Orv Command takes. I do think too, though, like back to the versatility where I keep bringing up my Radagast and Gandalf the White. I think Saruman fits like a few roles of like magic. Like, I mean, I don't see you using him to like combat through anyone or anything like that. I think the weakness of him is when he's anywhere like 6 inches or closer to any models, because they can jump in on him or like so I don't know. Versatility isn't as much.
He just makes sure you either reliability and courage aspects, especially with he says he can stand fast everybody, and then the reliability of his spell casting. You just know when you cast a spell with him, it's probably going to be cast. Whereas,
and there's an interesting synergy too when you put him, Saruman the White and Galadriel, Lady of Light together, almost become the unstoppable magical combination, because they synergize so well. First of all, every time they're within 6 inches of each other, both of them get a +1 to resist. Galadriel can fortify his spirit and protect him from the bow fire, which tends to be his weakness when he's on his own, as he can get shot off his horse or he gets shot down. And she kind of solves that problem. She gives a -1 to anybody who's trying to charge him. And just the two of them together, I think it's 300 points, so it's a lot of points to spend. But boy, do they kind of cover all the bases.
It's a bargain for two Ferraris for just 300 points.
I think another great thing that they. I think another great thing about Sarman the White is that they added giving him a horse in this edition.
Yeah.
Whereas he didn't have that before, so that's a huge thing for him to be able to get that horse.
I mean,
now he can like
edition, but it was only one of his profiles. So
now that's what he's saying. The good version has it now.
No. So like in the old edition, one of the good profiles had it. The other good profile didn't have it.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's true.
They then combined the two profiles. And then that was a bit of a, which one do I take, the mountain one or the foot one?
Yeah,
there's actually another thing. So I think that goes well for both Saruman and Gandalf. So for both versions of Gandalf, people often forget how powerful blast is when you actually blast into combat. Because essentially, whenever you're moving second, like whenever I would play any situations, especially with Saruman, I virtually never call heroic moves. Because I want my opponent to go first, and let's say I want them to surround a flank, to surround one of my guys with four of theirs, and then you just go, okay, well, I'm gonna blast this guy, and then that will hit all of your guys in this combat. He might even fly out, hit another combat, and in the meantime, my guy was gonna die anyway, whilst all of your guys get hit, and so the Sorcerer's Blast is still a really potent spell. Even though it's not as obvious as it used to be in the previous edition. So that goes obviously all for Saruman, Gandalf, the other Saruman. So it's only really Radagast who's just like hiding there behind a tree and doesn't really get to do it.
Oof, okay. I knew it was coming at you, you cheap shot. But here's what, listening to all your guys' lists, Radagast is the cheapest and the only one with Nature's Wrath. And Radagast is the only one that can go on basically a flying monster. So I'm just gonna throw that out there to remind our viewers that Radagast is the best.
I think the best thing about Radagast is the being able to see everything, because when you can just hide behind a tree the whole time, you still have line of sight.
That is actually pretty underutilized for a lot of things.
I agree that Radagast is the cheapest.
Any final thoughts on the bad Sarman, Mick?
There's actually something I remember about Radagast, the story I had when I was playing against Adam Trogue a few years ago at Articon. He had Legolas and Gimli, and even though I was winning the game, my Radagast was constantly getting shot by Legolas. And so finally, I decided to fly over to the other side of the board, dismount him, hide him behind a tree, and then fly by the eagle. And so my Radagast did almost nothing all game, but he hid there. So that was a win.
What?
Nice.
That must be an obscure definition of win that I'm not familiar with, but okay.
I'll take it as long as it's a win. Like, I'll take it.
People might identify wins as different things, Matt. You just have to accept what their definition is sometimes.
But that goes back to Radagast's versatility. Each different person is talking about how Radagast won them a game in a different way. So it's just...
Actually, one important note, I just thought about this, that we've been kind of alluding to. Radagast, Gandalf, and Gandalf the White all have the ability to not be your leader if you really don't want them to. Mm-hmm. But Saruman's kind of stuck in the leader role.
He's kind of screwed in that situation unless you bring him in with Bard or someone like that.
Yeah. And I guess that is a problem if you have like Contest of Champions or something like that.
Yeah.
Even Maelstrom battles, like I can see Saruman, you have to like utilize his might or have someone like Madrill in there to like get him in the right place because he's gonna be by himself.
Also, the inability to lead
your opponent. You simply immobilize your opponent's leader, kill one guy with Saruman, and then run for the rest of the game, and you still win. So it doesn't really matter if he's the leader.
Exactly.
Actually, here's the thing: do we think that the reason we don't see Saruman as much is because he doesn't lead troops?
I think it's because of the Sorcerer's Blast.
Sorcerer's Blast? You think?
I think because the range is good, but what made him so good was the fact that he had the range ability, plus the Sorcerer's Blast gave him the offense. Like, we always categorized it as this, right? Radagast was the defensive wizard. Gandalf was the middle ground who could do a little bit of both, and then Saruman was the offensive wizard. Now that they took that away from him, he kind of just falls in that, like, area in between, like offensive and middle ground kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's not really great at one thing, and he's not really okay. You know what I mean? Like it's the reason you take him is for the range and the rerolls. But if that Sorcerer's Blast was still what it was, he would be used all the time.
I also think that people generally don't take them, don't take Saruman because there is an obvious place for him to go. With someone like Gandalf the White, obviously you take him in the Spirit list, or Gandalf the Great, you obviously take him in Lake Down. For Radagast, you obviously take him somewhere with eagles or something. I don't know where you take him.
Anywhere, take him anywhere.
For the other Saruman, obviously you take him with Isengard, but this guy, it's a lot of points to spend, and you don't really know where to put him. And that's the main thing, I think.
So now we're gonna get on to the good Saruman, or I should say the evil Saruman, who's better than the good Saruman. He is 10 points more, which is annoying, but I'll explain why it's worth it overall. You're always taking him in the Isengard list, and the great thing about it, where Gandalf the White and Gandalf the Great, even though Radagast can take him with eagles, of course, really Gandalfs are the ones who can take troops besides this Saruman. So great thing is you can have 18 Uruk-hai in his warband, or whatever you wanted to add to his warband, of course. So that's always great. For the extra 10 points, though, compared to what we were just describing, you get the Palantir. And sometimes when everyone's out of might, or you really need them to use their point of might to win the move for a call, having the ability to just go, that's my priority, can be such a big thing at times. And I think it gets a little underrated at times, where people are like, oh, well, it's great to have, but it's not like that big. The ability to go, this is my priority, I think is a huge thing. And also, you get a new spell called Flame Burst. And Flame Burst is the coolest spell that we ever saw in the movies, because who doesn't want to see someone shoot a fireball at someone? But also, it does damage to both the mount and the rider. So it really can screw up a lot of things where, maybe you just, you can say, why target one thing when you could target both? You know what I mean? So Radagast is on Eagle. I'm like, let me hurt Radagast and the Eagle all at the same time, And then if I want to channel it, I can go, why don't you get on fire? Why don't I set you ablaze? And then the only way you can get rid of that is to, get off the Eagle, essentially.
Actually, as a quick thought, I actually think that that's the only reason I'd use that spell, is to channel it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I can hear Evan screaming from the next room over. Under what circumstances would you use Flame Burst?
You wouldn't use
Sorcerer's Blast.
Yeah.
Well, the ability to do 2 wounds at once.
It's a tool in your belt. Like I like the idea that it's there. Like,
so what is it? It's a 5-up cast.
Yeah,
it's like a classical music radio station. We don't listen to it, but we like the idea that it's there.
Well, I mean, so let's say I wanted to dismount a horse, right? So I can use a 4+
Sorcerer's Blast.
Yeah, you could do that, or
on a 4-up cast plus throw the thing back. Like it's an obvious choice.
So this is what. So,
Tim, it's okay to say that the spell is only used for channeling.
No,
I had to say it about.
I got it.
Collapse Rocks.
I
have the same spell. Collapse Rocks is totally useless.
No. See, I've got your use here. You ready for this? So here's what you do. So you say to yourself, all right, I already need a 4+ to make that cast, right? With Saruman having the ability to reroll a dice. If you get the 4, then that's great. However, if you were to get if you were to use it on a 5, not only do you do the exact same thing, which is to get them off the horse, but with a damage roll, then you could also do damage to the model itself. So you do 2 wounds at the same time as one.
But I get what you're saying. Is a 5-up is harder to resist, but the fact that you're casting it all on a 4 means they have to try to resist.
Yeah, can't you just cast Sorcerer's Blast and roll a 5?
Yeah. Well, Sorcerer's Blast is also unresistible. You can cast it at a target and they can resist, but the more practical application of Sorcerer's Blast is to cast it on somebody who's going to bowling ball into the target. Yeah. So whereas you can't do it at all with Flame Burst is just strictly worse at a 5-up. If it was a 3-up cast, I'm all right, but on a 5-up, it's
I think you could still use it for sometimes. I mean, the strength 6 over the 5. Like, I mean, if you
That's the
depending
one
on what
application.
what defense. I mean, say you come up against
Ring raise.
Ring Race, yeah, or even you come up against what's his face,
unmounted.
Huron, and Huron's defense
yeah.
6, and you really need that one wound just to like take him out of the game. Like, I think it's applicable.
All right, so the one time in 1,000 you run up against a ring wraith that is not on a mount.
And yes, Flame Burst is the better spell in that case.
Well,
See,
It
we
is better
discussed it. We
against-
came to
against
a
normal
conclusion.
Warriors, like it's actually better against food warriors. But if you are going to use it on a mount, first of all, if you Sorcerer's Blast a mount, you automatically dismount, so you don't have to roll that 3+ strength 6 thing.
Mhm.
And the second thing is, when that mount is dismounted, well, they get another strength 3 hit on the rider, so it's a strength 5 and a strength 3 hit. So that's way stronger.
I think we'll segue this into a Flame Burst debate over like the real use of Evil Saruman, which is Grima.
But no, wait, let's keep talking about Flame Burst. There is actually, I think, a use against Ents.
Oh yeah, what's their effect when they like get burned or something?
It's not that. I don't think the Sorceress Blast necessarily does anything to them.
No.
Well, it doesn't move them. It still damages them.
It still
I can't
does.
remember how that spell works.
Yeah, the special rule for Ents is they cannot be moved by enemy effects for any reason.
Right. Well, we can go on and talk about Grima, and I'll look this one up because I thought there was a reason for this with Ents.
And the Palantir, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what is your guys' opinion? I think the Palantir is a huge thing, but
It's big. I think it's a big deal
good.
for 10 points. I mean, I'd pay it, and you're actually paying 10 points not just for that, but also more spells and
one more spell. Yeah.
Well, okay, Flame Burst.
I think it goes well though, because what we haven't mentioned is like what he comes with Isengard itself. So I think Mix Saruman is like, okay, you can ally him into anywhere. Tim Saruman is always going to have an offensive troop where the Palantir is going to work fantastic. You always want the initiative with Uruk-hai, and not only that, but the Uruk-hai play style is so aggressive. They slash through and in a way like you don't have to protect Saruman and Tim's list as much because you're the one being aggressive with your force, if that kind of makes sense.
Saruman in this list is the troops that he can lead. And the Uruk-hai have the best base profile stat line in the whole game, in my opinion, because they're fight 4, they're strength 4, and the front line's D6 at courage 3, which is average. So
the Space Marines of the game, basically.
Because I really think about how many models in the game are fight 4 and strength 4, and they have the ability to be D6. There's almost none, to my knowledge, besides Iron Hills. But even then, Iron Hills.
I'm actually surprised they're not courage 4. That's the only thing I'm surprised.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they're average. I mean, I'll take average courage. So I've always thought that the best troop in the game is the Uruk-hai, because for their points and what they do, they are phenomenal. And the fact that he can lead 18 of them means that, you can afford to go a little bit lower on warband. So, maybe if for whatever reason you didn't want to take Lurtz, you can take more captains at 60 points instead of 90. And then you can get more troops, and maybe you use that points to get a drummer in there, and then you move forward with them.
The sad fact is you're probably going to see less of Saruman just because of the Isengard legendary legion.
Or any of the other 6 legendary legions that Isengard now has.
Well, it's just the Assault and Helm's Deep Legion is considered the most competitive. Well, at least from what I've heard, considered the most competitive.
For lowish points, I think once it comes to 800, like I'd consider taking
that's probably
Saruman for versatility, and then you could even bring a demolition team, and you still have that edge. Like that's the thing. Like we think Saruman and Uruk-hai, like it's way more than that. You have demolition teams, you have berserkers who you can keep next to Saruman who can charge. There's so many tools to like Isengard. It looks so simple, but through all the changes in this game, they've held up. And I still think they can still hold up in competitive play.
I don't think there's like every time I go against Isengard, I'm not happy, because not only do you have to deal with the strong troops, but then all of their heroes are no slouches either, because they're all fight 5, strength 5. And then with the way that Lurtz is now, he's basically another version of Shagrat, but for 25 points cheaper. And like we talked about Lurtz in an earlier episode, but they just kind of have everything. You're not upset with anything that they have. Like you're just plus, I mean, we could talk about him if you want, but Grima basically is an add-on to Saruman. Like
he's basically an extension of Saruman.
Yeah, he's an extension.
Realistically.
So the ability to make your opponent either if they have magic, he's gone. Everybody, but so for example, if Rainier had if you were against Radagast, he can't do anything really against him. You'd have to put troops around him.
I've killed Grima with Radagast.
How'd you kill him?
He came on a horse.
Oh.
You knock him down. And
yeah, that's right. He died. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
but even the whole like Palantir thing, like Isengard has the ability to give all these really good cheap 3 might heroes, not most, but many of which can strike, and like to have the Palantir and an abundance of might and being like, yeah, I win this one, and then your opponent has to heroic move off, and it just gets chaotic for them.
What is your opinion? Grima on horse or Grima not on horse?
I take well, I mean, I take him usually on horse unless you're like saving points for some reason.
What is the reason you take him on horse over not on horse when keeping in mind most people will either kill him?
I think on horse you can throw him in a warband, like like certain Rohan warbands that are going to go off and about, or even say you have him in one warband and they deploy that warband on the opposite side of the battlefield to keep him away from the fighting, then you're doubling your speed basically to get to the fight and affect it more. That's why I'd choose him on horse.
He's also harder. He's harder to surround if he's on a horse, because if you don't call a heroic move and dedicate it to getting around him and you lose priority, he can just run to a position where you can't surround him, and then kind of run in when he needs to where he needs to be behind your lines.
I have to say, before we end this up, I was not expecting to talk as much about Radagast as we did, and like most of the episode was genuinely about Radagast. So, I mean, I'm going to say that maybe Radagast is the best. We talked about him the most, and almost everything.
This required the entire podcast to defend him in order to.
Actually,
just like he's so bad.
In each wizard, Radagast just popped up being like it's a cheaper, better version.
He is the cheapest. He is the cheapest option. He clearly can do some things very well, and he has the ability to go to high points and still be very effective. I mean, he might be actually more versatile than.
Great. He's the Honda of wizards. So, by the way, the reason I was thinking Flame Burst against Ents is the defense 8. It's because the Flame Burst
it does more damage.
Wounding them on a so the same argument is the Ring Rays. Yeah. I mean, just for anyone, while we round this out in the last less than 10 minutes of this podcast, obviously from this, if anybody hasn't guessed, there is no clearly obviously best wizard.
Saruman from Isengard.
Well, except for on the evil side.
Kardish gets to cast Flame Burst, and he does it much better than Saruman does. So
he doesn't have as much will, and he can't re-roll it. So,
I mean, I think unless you're talking about the evil side, in which case, yes, Saruman is better than Sharky. Other than that, then realistically,
#justice for Sharky.
Every wizard has got their roles and uses. I mean, even with the nerf of Radagast, Nature's Wrath, I think it's not that you stop seeing him. I think it's just that you don't see him abused, because I mean, everyone was taking the guy. Like he just was like, stick him in a list. He instantly makes the list better.
I took him with Khazad-dûm so that I could knock him down, and all my axes could just destroy.
Oh, dude, I slotted him into every single list I wrote. In the first half year or whatever that was legal, I'm like, every list is gonna. I mean, it was actually a big problem for Articon, because we were like, who's taking Radagast? So I mean, realistically, I think he just went from broken. He's the only one where I will actually say he's broken. Like Mick said earlier, Lake Town's broken. I think the podcast might agree. Radagast was actually like a broken wizard.
Yeah, he was. You saw him in absolutely everything.
I have
no
ridiculous idea how that made it through playtesting.
But I think with the new change to Nature's Wrath, I still think he's pretty viable.
Yeah, he's still viable. I don't think he's useless at all. I think
he's just not like an auto include now. Now you have to
I don't really think any of the wizards are. Except, I'm sorry, Lake Town and Gandalf. Yes.
Yeah.
But not outside of Lake Town.
Not outside of Lake Town. Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think necessarily Gandalf is an auto include in Lake Town either. I mean, you can, especially at lower points, you can build a perfectly viable Lake Town list without Gandalf.
I mean, you would
Well, I
have a
think
lot
lower
of
points.
troops.
Lower points. I think it becomes required to build it without Gandalf.
Yeah.
I think once you hit the 600 or less,
Even higher points, you can go for
Right.
more of a allied
If you
and like
dropped-
combat heroes.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you dropped Gandalf, you could probably get like a warband and a half plus 2 captains.
Yeah,
so like, there's like
exactly.
an extra
You could get
18 models.
Thorin like for cheaper than Gandalf,
Yeah.
and he could lead some bad boys, and like he's on a goat too, just like ripping through people with free hero combats, basically.
So basically,
I
all
think
of you
that's his rules.
listening, like you just listened to 2 hours of us basically telling you that there's no best wizard.
Except Gandalf the White.
It's true, but I think I've learned quite a lot in this episode. Like I know
think
I've
it's-
played against all these wizards. I haven't actually played as them, but I'm actually like, wow, like back in the day, Magic used to rule SBG, and after this episode, I'm like, oh, interesting. Like all these wizards optimize many lists, and you could ally in a couple of them together. It's quite scary, actually, to think about it.
Let us know in the comment section below who you believe is the top wizard, and I expect to see a lot of Saruman from Isenguards because we all know it's true. Let us know as well any lists that you'd like for us to review, and if there's anything you want us to speak about in future episodes, leave that as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Wait, real quick. When you vote for Radagast, make sure you put the poop emoji with it. Thank you.
On the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yeah, when you vote for the discount wizard, you know.
There you go. Talk about how poop he is.
No, I mean, you know, you're not necessarily being cheap. You're just being frugal.
True, though. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy.